we did not meet the goals or expectations of the ownership, of this club, of our fans. We've had some difficult circumstances on and off the field this year. But there's no excuses, and this is something we're going to work hard to turn around for 21. So, we've had a lot of learnings this year, on the field, off the field, and these are some things that we're analyzing now. Like I said, we're having some learnings, and so we're going to look to apply those in the off season. But look, we are optimistic that we can correct those. And, I think the good thing is we're able to now look forward to 2021, look at where we came up short, look at where we need to address, look at some things we need to improve internally and for sure ourselves. This is something that we're holding ourselves accountable for. But we need to move forward now, and we need to learn from our mistakes. We need to learn from our challenges this year, and make those right. And so excited about bringing in a new coach for 2021. And like I said, some areas on the field we need to address, and some areas off the field we need to address. But we're undeterred in our long-term strategy, and this is something that we've had in mind. We've set ourselves up to be able to do some stuff in 2021. So we're definitely looking forward to that and getting this club back to where it belongs, on top of the table.
Thanks, Carlos. First question here is going to be from Doug.
Hey, Carlos, just if you could maybe go a little bit deeper into some of the things you just said, specifically about you've set yourselves up to be able to do some stuff in 2021. What are the things that you've done, and what is it you're hoping to set up? And can you just provide a little detail on some of the learnings you said that the team has had on and off the field this year, please?
Yeah. So look, with the learnings, when I talk about on the field, we had some challenging circumstances this year with the stop-start nature. The players also had to, they had a few different coaches this year. I think, something I didn't mention necessarily in the opening statement was I do want to say I'm proud of the players this year and for what they sacrificed. It was a very strange year for them. Starting the season, stopping the season. Then, we went back, we had a little mini tournament. We ended up changing coaches. We had another break, the uncertainty of how things were going. So, they had to sacrifice a lot. Their social lives, all the testing protocols, them not being able to do, normal visiting with their friends and family and things like that. So that was an interesting thing that we saw, Doug, that was, some on the field, some off the field, and some effects. But, these are some things that we hope to put in place to help the players next year, because while we will have a new coach and, we should have stability for the season, we don't know kind of what's going to happen off the field and with the pandemic and, that kind of uncertainty. So I'm looking to put some things in and help a little bit more with the player care, the support, helping these guys mentally off the field, everything, all these things involved that help them feel more comfortable and focused so they can get ready and perform out there on the field.
Next question over to Felipe.
Thanks, Chris. Hi, Carlos. Just a little bit, if you could elaborate on that, given the caveat that you just said. I mean, clearly the year has been difficult, but both you and Stephen Glass at times have mentioned that the standard of play that is expected at Atlanta United has not been met by certain players. So how much of it is on the players, considering the circumstances that the year dealt, and how much of that is on the organization, the roster changes, the coaching changes?
Yeah, Felipe, that's a good question. I think it's a combination of everything. I think the players did their best to go out there and perform, and we were inconsistent this year, as you saw with our results. I talked about the change and inconsistencies we had around the club, which doesn't make it any easier for these guys. So, look, I think it's a combination of everything. And for sure, as a club, we're looking hard at ourselves and what could we have done better. we needed to have a little bit of roster turnover, if you want to call it roster turnover, or bringing in new faces this year. We're never going to stay stagnant. And then the pandemic hit and everything stopped. So that was a little bit of it's out of our control and it's out of the players' control on that one. But, these are just things that happen, and every team around the league had to deal with this. So we're not the only ones, right? And so that's when I say it wasn't good enough, and I think that's from top to bottom. We have to go back and look at and address these areas and say, Atlanta was not the only team that had to deal with this. Why were some of the other teams more successful than us? Why were some of the other teams more consistent? What were they doing on the field? What were they doing off the field? From a personnel standpoint, from a club standpoint, a player care and support standpoint. So it's really trying to analyze everything, Felipe, and look at it from all angles, because it just, in the end, it wasn't good enough.
Next question over to Joe. Go ahead, Joe.
Hey, Carlos, thanks for taking the time this afternoon. Wanted to ask you just a little bit more about the coaching search. If you want to share any names, by the way, feel free. I don't expect that, though. I wanted to just ask about kind of what the profile is that you're looking for. Obviously, whoever comes and takes over is going to have a big job to do, and they're going to be able to really mold the playing squad that you put together around them. What kind of boxes does that coach need to check in order to be a good fit at the club?
Yeah, well, without going into too much detail, Joe, obviously it's very similar to our player profile for the club, that we try and attract players that play a certain style or have a certain profile and bring them into the club. And that's also the same with the coach, that we want them to be aligned and have a style of play, or demonstrated a style of play that is something that we want to see within our philosophy at the club. So, I'm not going to have a grand update for you on this. We do hope to name one still soon, and definitely before the end of the year is our goal. I don't want to put a timetable on that, but we do feel like this is desirable. We feel like we're headed in a very good direction with that search. And I do think Atlanta United, even though we had an off year, is still a very desirable place for a coach to come.
Next question, Tom. Go ahead, Tom Bogert.
Hey, Carlos. Thanks for taking the time. I guess just in general, outside of obviously the coaching search, what are the front office's goals this offseason? What are you looking to focus on and address?
Yeah, thanks, Tom. I think, a little bit of what I said before, we definitely need to address some areas on the field. And, I guess one of the other things was, it was an interesting year for us to assess players on the field. Again, they had a couple different managers. They had things going on off the field. So we got to see a lot of different formations. We only were able to put out the same starting 11 one time, back-to-back all year. So the players were in different positions, different combinations. So we got to see the players in a lot of different scenarios, right? Partnerships on the field, positions on the field, different formations. And that has helped us potentially find like some of our weaknesses, potentially find some better partnerships that we weren't necessarily expecting to see. So those are what we're looking at and analyzing and having those learnings that I spoke about earlier.
Next question, back to Doug.
Yeah, Carlos, and I forgot to say thank you for doing this, but thank you for doing this. When will the team exercise options on players? Will it be before or after the Club America game? And if it's before, how do you approach that game in that situation?
Yeah, so it's a little bit of a challenging situation, Doug. I spoke to the players after the game last night, but we're going to be having our kind of individual end of season conversations, option decline or option taking their options over the next 7 to 10 days. So what happens with that is, it's at the end of the month, we have to make that decision. Then we notify the players, and we're in a little bit of a weird situation because we've got a handful of guys that, if we decline or accept their options, then potentially that's before the Club America game, and we will have to work one-on-one with the league. in these individual contract situations. And what I mean by that is if, player X, we say, we're not going to take your option, and we tell them November 30th, December 1st, around there. Obviously, the Club America game is December 15th or 16th. So then we're going to have to work with the league. And if the player wants to play in that game, and if the league is able to, I think they have to figure out with the CBA and the players union to add a few weeks onto their contract. So it's a little bit of a complicated situation. And just like everything for 2020, we kind of have to roll with it as it goes. But that's something we're trying to figure out with the league. My understanding at this point is everyone on our roster is eligible. So you look at the Marcelinos, Jurgens, Eric Lopez, all the guys that were available on our roster this year are going to be available. The question is going to be if we decline or pick up their option, and what the league and the players union are able to work out for that game.
Next question, Rob. Go ahead, Rob.
Hey, Carlos, you mentioned about moves to improve the team on the field going into the next season. Can you speak about what type of moves fans can expect, maybe whether it's incremental type of moves, or can maybe they expect more big impact type of signings?
Yeah, Rob, that's a good question. So we have a few different possibilities on the table. Obviously, as I spoke about, a new coach coming in, so we're going to have to have those discussions as well. I wouldn't expect too much to happen in the next few weeks. The season is still going on, but we have to sit down and address that with the new coach coming in and speak about the team, the setup, the direction we want to go, and also new pieces we would like to add to the group. We always want to be able to add pieces to the group. We speak about this every year. We don't want to stay stagnant. We want to move forward. But we feel like we have a good base to build off of, and we have a few guys coming back to the team next year.
Felipe, go ahead.
Thanks again, Chris. I think change has been a part of the club now for the last two seasons, in 2019 and again in 2020. How do you, I guess, mitigate yet another wave of changes that will come to the club in 2021? From footballing philosophies, from culture, and how do you mitigate those changes affecting the performance of the team to start the next season?
Yeah, so I think we're always going to have a little bit of change. We're in a salary cap league, so unfortunately we can't keep everyone every year. We do our best to try to keep a solid group together, but at some point we do have to make some changes and try to work it out in the salary cap per se. What I spoke about earlier, Felipe, that our philosophy, the way we want to try and play, the way we want to look on the field. We want to be exciting for the fans. We want to score goals. That wasn't the case this year, right? So when you talk about change, we have to change something because it did not work out to plan this year. So we are going to have to make adjustments. That doesn't mean we need to make overwhelming, turn the squad upside down type changes. But we have to learn from what happened this year, and that's what we have to address in the offseason.
Sydney Hunt, go ahead, Sydney.
Hey, Carlos. Want to go back to CCL. You kind of briefly touched on that. It's going to be kind of an interesting dynamic, not just because of the roster build, but because of A, it being tacked on to the end of the year because of the pandemic, and then B, the club will really have it all to do against America. What do you suppose the mindset will be among the players going into that match? I mean, as weird as it might be.
Yeah, so it's a fair question. It's really a strange one, especially not qualifying for the playoffs and then having like this big gap between the champions they can play in a big team like Club America. So what we've done now is we spoke to the group yesterday. They need to get away from the facility. They have not been able, a lot of them, see their friends and family for a year. They've been sort of stuck here in the country in isolation. So what we want them to do is go refresh mentally, get away from here, be with their families, recharge, and then come back and really just let's have a go at it. We have nothing to lose. We're down 3-0 in the tie, but let's enjoy it. Get back out here, start building, put in a good performance, see what happens, and let's try to use some of that momentum into next year.
Marcel, go ahead. Next question. Marcel, your line's open.
Yes, I'm here. Coach, discuss Stephen Glass. So 2 things. One, will he return to?
I didn't hear.
Say that again, Marcel. You just broke up. Marcel, can you hear me? All right, we'll go to Joe. Joe, go ahead. Next question.
Hey, Carlos. You mentioned the the salary cap earlier. You spoke at a supporters town hall a few weeks ago and said that it sounds like you were anticipating this last offseason as always going to be a struggle because you had these big salaries that were kind of coming to a point where you had to make a decision on them. And that kind of caused a lot of the changes that we saw coming into this season. Do you expect the club to have a little bit more flexibility in that regard this postseason or this offseason?
Yeah. So Joe, I think when I spoke about that, I was talking about how we kind of pushed the limits till in 2018, correct? I think that's what you're referring to. So look, in a salary cap league, we're trying to maximize it always, and that balance between winning and mortgaging your future. And, so this season was a good example. We didn't want to mortgage our future for 21, 22, 23 and destroy our salary cap by pulling money forward. There's all kinds of other mechanisms that we can go into. But, this season we're going to have some change. Do we feel good about where we are? Yeah. Do we have to make a few moves to get there? Yeah, we're going to have to make some adjustments and some moves, but it's no different than any other team around the league, and the approach to taking on a salary cap. It's always a challenge every year.
Mike Conti, next question. Go ahead. Sorry. Mike, can you hear us?
I can now. Sorry, can you hear me? Sorry, guys. Carlos, following up on Sydney's question, when do you plan to recall the players for, I guess, kind of a training situation before the CONCACAF Champions League? And is there any kind of positive in being able to get some kind of work in December with, I guess, the start date of the 2021 season still a little bit uncertain?
So they're going to be coming back at the end of the month here, Mike. And as far as a positive, we will look to bring in a couple of our players that have been getting time with the USL and potentially a couple academy kids to train, and we'll be able to evaluate them against the first team here leading up to a big tournament. And look, again, like I said, we don't know some of the options and where that goes and where that leaves us with numbers. Hopefully, in the downtime, we don't have guys coming back with COVID and have to be hit by that with numbers. So we don't know who's going to be on this final roster to go down and play in this CONCACAF game against Club America. But, on that side of a thing, it will give us a chance to have a couple weeks trying to integrate some of our USL players that we want to look at for next year, and potentially a couple of academy kids to get some training over the winter time.
Last one for Carlos. Marcel, can you hear us? Can you go ahead? Marcel, your line's open if you can hear us. All right, we'll finish it up. One last one here with Doug. Doug, go ahead.
Just a quick follow. I had 2 questions, but a quick follow-up on that the answer you just gave, Carlos. When you talk about USL players, are you talking about Carlton and Kunga? And in the CBA that was supposed to go into effect this year, there was like a young DP clause. I think it was 3 kind of new slots that were going to be open to MLS teams. If the CBA is re-ratified and that is within it, is that something that Atlanta United is going to try to take advantage of for next season?
Yeah, so I'm not sure exactly what you meant with the Kunga and Carlton situation, but
Well, they're in USL this year. You said USL players. I didn't know if you're referring to it lending out to 2 players or players on loan.
yeah, sorry. So that's going to be open to all of the USL players on loan or in-house. It's just we have that availability. We have that option to have some of those guys train with us is what I'm saying.
Okay.
And then, yeah, on your other question, we're always going to be looking at any mechanism possible to add to the group. And, so we'll closely monitor that from the MLS and with the rules and regulations that they give us, but we're always going to be looking to add and strengthen.
All right, thanks everyone. We'll have Darren up here in just a minute.
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you see me? One sec.
Test that one more time. Darren, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, but I do not see you. It says your video's on, but I don't see you.
Yeah. Clicked it on camera. You think we'd get this sus by now?
Hold on one Darren, let's just go ahead and test that audio again if you can for me.
Yeah, check 1, 2, 3.
Perfect. Okay, we'll have Darren start here with an opening statement, and then we'll go to questions.
Thanks,
Right.
Chris. Yeah, apologies everyone for that. It's thought wouldn't you by now we'd get used to being able to use the Zoom call. Look, I just want to echo really what Carlos said a little bit earlier. We finished the regular season yesterday, and it was frankly a really disappointing season for us as Atlanta United. We didn't make the playoffs. That's the sort of minimum goal that we set ourselves, and we didn't achieve that. So we are incredibly disappointed. But on a positive note now, it's the regular season's over. We're thinking now about 21 and focusing all of our attention and resources and internal thought into how we're going to make sure that we bounce back. And it's the city sort of phrase resurgence, to rise again. I think this is a great opportunity now. We've got to focus on 21, and this 2020 has been a strange year for a number of reasons and for a lot of people, and we want this to be quickly forgotten and start as we mean to go on in 2021.
We'll start here with Felipe. Go ahead, your line's open.
Good afternoon, Darren. Thanks for meeting with us.
Hi, Felipe. Yeah, no worries.
So listen, I mean, clearly losing and just the year has taken a massive toll on the organization, high expectations. The bar is always high in Atlanta. How will you restore not just the fans' faith in the project, but more importantly, how do you restore the players' faith? And will any players have any input on the next coaching hire?
No, so I think great question, Felipe. I think we've got to prove that we can bounce back. I mean, we can give you words now, and I understand that at the end of a disappointing season, we've got to basically walk the walk and get the team back to where we need it to be next season. I think there are a lot of mitigating circumstances, but I totally understand that this isn't the time, and people don't want to hear that. We haven't made the playoffs, and we set ourselves up as a club that sets the bar high, as you point out. Our neighbours down the road, they're super excited because it's took them 6 years to make it into the playoffs. So it's a different kettle of fish for us and a different focus. So we are looking to reset the bar, to sort of spoke about resurgence, refocus, and we will do that. We've got to get our new coach in. We've got the players on board. We think some good pieces. I think there's been some bright spots in this season that we can talk about a little bit later. But our focus now is getting that new coach in and making sure that we start in 21 in the way we want to go. And there won't be any direct input from the players, Felipe, but we know exactly what we're looking to do as a club. We know that we haven't met those expectations. And I've spoken about this before. We want to play attractive football on the pitch, and we want to get the results as well. So we set a double bar for that, but that's what we'll be looking to do with the new hire.
Next question, Doug. Go ahead. Your line's open.
Hey, Darren. No whiteboard I see over your shoulder there. I'm going to ask this question with some context. Frank was let go or mutually agreed to part ways, in y'all's words, because the results and the playing style weren't really coming. With that being said, and looking at what all happened this year, I'm curious, will Carlos continue to oversee player acquisitions and talent identification and things like that, or will there be any other kind of layers added to that to help, so to speak?
Yeah, Doug, good to chat with you. Yeah, absolutely. No, we'll continue as it's been. I think you're right. We made the decision with Frank at the time we did because of direction of travel. We've had Stephen step in, and Stephen did a great job in really difficult circumstances. It's very difficult to come in as an interim coach, particularly given the circumstances with the pandemic and everything that's going on. The energy that he brought, the work that he put in with his team. He's been an ultimate club man, and so I can't thank him enough for working in a difficult circumstances. We spoke about it at the time with Pity Martinez. That's something where there came that opportunity, something that was the player really wanted, that was an amazing deal for the club. that was something, in the circumstances we were in, that was the right thing to do for the club for the medium to long term. But it was certainly, in the short term, difficult as well for Stephen. And, he still rolled his sleeves up and, kept at it with the energy and the sort of focus that he's done. So from that perspective, I want to put on record my thanks to Stephen for that job. And, he's someone that really has been a club man and deserves that praise. But no, the reality is, Doug, I mean, look, it's been a disappointing season. Absolutely. It's been a crazy season. It's been a season, and I want to be really careful here because, again, I don't want to sort of be looking to give excuses, because we absolutely, it starts with me at the top, understand that this season is not what we expect from Atlanta United. It's not what our fans expect from Atlanta United. Something that we are deeply disappointed with. But in our first 4 years of existence, we've still had an unbelievably good run. I spoke about our neighbours down the road, and it took them 6 years to make the playoffs. So certainly, we're not going to throw the baby out with the bathwater, because we've had one season in a shortened pandemic season in which, our MVP of the league and 25 goals a season got injured in the very first match in a salary cap league. So that's certainly something we're not going to do, but we're not naive and we're not stupid. We've got to learn from this. And, we've had it good. We had 3 seasons where we were winning trophies. We had some adversity this year, and it's really important that we learn from that adversity. That's a good thing. This is sport. The nature of sport is up and down, but it's sometimes in those down times that you learn more. And I think that's what we've got to do as an organisation. It's been a good, I think, wake-up call in the sense that you can't always expect things to go perfectly. We've certainly had that. We've had our share of lumps this season and disappointments, and we've got to make sure that we're better from that. So, I think I'm fully confident with the club that we have, with the structure, with the team that we have on and off the pitch, and with our amazing fans, that we're in a wonderful position to look at 21. And this is what I hope. And again, I don't want to, I know it's difficult to talk now. We're going to have to walk the walk. But my hope and my vision and my dream is that we'll be sitting back in 21, back at the right end of the table, and thinking about that crazy year that was 2020 as, it almost will go into the legends as that one season, like the writers' strike did with all the sitcoms. When you look back and you think, yeah, just avoid that season, because it was just one of those weird years where it was just terrible, and watch the rest of it. That's how I hope it's going to be with Atlanta United, and I expect it to be.
Next question, Mike Conti. Mike, go ahead.
Hi, Darren. Hope you're doing well. I have 2 questions about the pandemic. One, has international travel or logistical issues related to the pandemic had any impact on the pace of your search for a new head coach? And 2, what do you think it says about your club, the physio staff, the work that you have done, that you're able to get through this season without any matches being postponed due to COVID, and to our knowledge, with there not being a major outbreak within the team?
Yeah, thanks, Mike. I mean, I'll take that second one first. I think, I want to add a shout out. Look, it's obviously been disappointing on the pitch, but when I look at some of the highlights off the pitch, I think, the players have, done some things where I'm really proud of them. I think, firstly, in terms of what you mentioned with the pandemic, I think it's a great credit to them that, we were a team that were able to play all our games. A couple of isolated cases here and there, but nothing that caused any games to be postponed. And we've seen in other sports, in MLS, there's been situations where games haven't had to be played, and that takes a discipline from the club, but ultimately from the players themselves. They're the people that you can only, in effect, police them while they're at the training ground, and I think they've done a great job in terms of us being able to get through that season. So I think that's a big shout out to them for what they did. I think, we had the social injustice and all of the issues that were also going on this year. And I was, incredibly proud of the team. We had that game in Miami, and, they took the lead, and they were the first game where they, in support of what was happening with NBA as well, they didn't play that game. And for me, that was something that I was proud of our players. I was proud of the club. I was proud of the way that our fans supported that decision. And I think, that's something that really really, I look back on this season, a disappointing season, but I look at that with a sense of pride about the club and the way that the players and our fans came together on that. And then I think the third one is, this past week with, the spotlight that's been on Georgia and Atlanta in terms of getting out the vote. And this is non-partisan. This is just about the right to vote and, what makes America the great country it is with democracy. I think the United We Vote was something that was specific as far as Atlanta United was concerned. Players, staff, our fans really believed in. It's something obviously our owner, Arthur Blank, has been committed and supportive of across his group of businesses. And so, again, when I saw our supporters group, each of them having competitions to register votes, and shout out to Footy Mob, who ended up getting the most supporters registered, our players all registering and trying to unite and get people out there to vote. And then for the way that it played out, that to become a really important important battleground in Georgia, but the story about getting people registered and getting people out to vote, regardless of your political persuasion, it's just that fact of voting. So, I was incredibly proud that was something that we could be a very small part of in sort of promoting the right to vote. So again, when I'm looking at some of the positives, we are a club. It's about obviously what goes on the pitch is of paramount importance, and that's what everyone focuses on. But I think, Atlanta United, and the reason that it's such a wonderful club and we've got such amazing supporters is we are a club, and it's not just about on the pitch, but off the pitch as well. And I think, whilst it's been a disappointing year, I think there's been some real highlights off the pitch. And again, huge shout out to our supporters because, they are such an integral part of the club, and they've shown out even in difficult circumstances when things aren't going well on the pitch.
Next question over to Rob. Rob, you should go ahead.
Hey, Darren. Several years ago, you said the club ethos as wanting to be a club that's fun to watch first and foremost, and the results be a product of that. Was there a certain moment, whether it be this year or even last season, where you pinpointed that maybe something wasn't right and you maybe needed to switch directions?
Yeah, Rob. Look, I spoke about this. I mean, it's we're certainly ambitious in that sense. So, trophies, being successful on the pitch and playing a certain style, to go for both is shooting for the moon, but that's what we want to do. So, we make no apologies for that. And I think, again, just briefly on 2019, that was an incredibly successful season on the pitch in terms of the results. As we know, we had that game against Toronto, and we spoke about it before. You play that game 10 times. I think we win it 9 out of 10. So we would have been back hosting the MLS Cup, as defending champions. But again, when we made the change we did, it wasn't just about results on the pitch. It was about direction of travel. And I use that phrase, direction of travel, because, clearly it wasn't what we expected from an Atlanta United team. And I feel, the point about direction of travel is, in my view, that, you set those standards and it was clear that it wasn't going to go the direction we wanted. So it was never crossed my mind that you just wait around and hope that it changes, because hope's not a strategy, and it wasn't working. So we made the change when we did to give ourselves the maximum opportunity. And sorry, Rob, I didn't answer Mike's question. I'll wrap it in here about the pandemic and the search, but it gave us a maximum opportunity of time to do that thorough search and to make sure we get it right, and to make sure we get someone as a head coach of this club that is going to play the way that we expect. So, that exciting pressing style of football. We want the results as well. So we're greedy like that. We want to be winning and playing well, but that's what we strive for, Rob. And I think that's what, we made the change we did to give ourselves that opportunity. Now we've come to the end of our regular season. By the time we start next season, we've got to have that head coach in place as part of that jigsaw puzzle, as part of this resurgence to come back and get the Atlanta United that you, Rob, want to watch as well. I'm mindful of you guys who follow us and do a great job following Atlanta United, and a big thank you to all the work you do in writing about the club and promoting it, everybody on this call. But, we want you to have fun as well, and that's what soccer's about. It's an enjoyment, it's an entertainment industry. We want success, we want to have the fun, we want it to be enjoyable to watch. And I think that's what, our expectation is for the fans, for you guys, that we put out next year in 2021.
Next question, Tom. Go ahead, Tom.
Hey, Darren, thanks for taking the time. I asked Carlos this too, but outside of the coaching hire, what are you guys focused on this offseason? What specific areas are you looking to improve, whether it's, a position group or something else?
Yeah, I think, look, we've got a number of things that, from my perspective, and again, I'm aware that it's all talk and the proof of the pudding is going to be in the eating when we play next year. But I think, we've got obviously Joseph coming back, a huge important part for us going into 2021 to get him. It's not only his goals, it's just the aura when Joseph's on the pitch. Just that knowledge that you've got someone who, if you give him a couple of chances, you can be damn sure he's going to score at least one of them. So I think we've got that coming back. Any mechanism available to us through Major League Soccer and through the rule changes that comes into effect, we'll obviously be ready to take effect with that. I think, we've got some ability with the salary cap and a little bit more wiggle room going into next year in terms of some things we can do. So we feel pretty good about how we can strengthen the squad as well. I think, looking at some positives from this season, and I think George Bello's been fantastic. George is an 18-year-old. He's played 20 games this season. I think, we can be really pleased with what he's achieved this year. And look, being blunt, he's done a lot more defending than we'd ever would have thought with an Atlanta United team. We've been a much more on the back foot. But I think he's really grown as a player. And, I thought the game yesterday was one of the best games he's had for the club. So I think, that's exciting. We've had 3 homegrowns make their debut this season. We're 5th in minutes in the league in terms of homegrown. And again, when you look at us, we're only 4 years in as a club. A lot of the other teams have had academies for 12 years. So this is something that's only going to get better as time goes on. So I'm excited about that. So we've got a George Bello. I thought, John Gallagher did great for us this season. The loan to Aberdeen really helped him and he's kicked on. I think, Jurgen Damm is someone who top 3 in assists for 90 minutes this year in the league. And I think, he's doing that without Joseph. I think, the excitement of having a Joseph up front and Jurgen coming down the right is something that we can really look forward to. I think Marcelino's looked really good in settling in. It's been difficult because he obviously came in right near the end of the season. He hadn't played since March because of the pandemic. But I think you've seen his quality in the games that we've had. And, I'm excited to see him linking up as we build the squad for next year. So I think we've got a lot of positives to look forward to. And Tom, we're going to do everything we can within the rules to build on that squad and to get a team out there that's going to be exciting for the fans to watch.
Got time for a few more. We'll start here with Sydney. Go ahead, Sid.
Hey, Darren. I want to ask you about the league's media rights right now. Unfortunately, with a lot of the streaming services that are out there right now, Fox is no longer on them, and that really hindered a lot of fans' ability to watch the matches from here in Atlanta. Are you able to share much about what you see in the future as far as the media rights is concerned, and how does the club kind of work around that in 2021, considering that no deal is reached between Fox Sports and some of the streaming platforms that are out there?
Yeah, Sydney, obviously it's something, it was brought to our attention, and, I'd urge, and when we did this on a post on our social media channels, this is something, we're talking to Fox with. It's one of those negotiations that go on in the background. I think any pressure our fans can give on the services to encourage them to come to a deal and come to a settlement, that's obviously something that's going to need that external pressure for deals to be done. I think, we're hopeful that a deal will get done. I think, like all negotiations, there'll be a little bit of a standoff and then ultimately they'll come to a compromise. But, we're aware of that. We have that deal with Fox, and obviously we want them to be carried on as many options as they can for our fans. So, again, we'd encourage our fans to reach out, and, it's going to be the same for some other sports as well. So I'm hopeful that if the pressure's there and the fans are there sort of in the background using their voice, then that's something that hopefully can get resolved, because it's in everyone's interest to have as wide a, availability of those Atlanta United games as possible.
Back to Felipe. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chris. Darren, so I think everyone here wants to see the best Joseph Martinez possible, a healthy Martinez that can come back and score goals, but we don't know how he'll react to knee surgery. I know you guys are probably going to be careful. You've been very careful with him. How has his recovery been? And I guess what plans are there to address just the concern that maybe he won't be 100% fit when the season starts? Scoring and chance creation has been an issue for Atlanta United. How is that coming along?
Yeah, look, I mean, firstly with Joseph, it's obviously, it was hugely disappointing his injury. He's been, very focused in his rehabilitation. We do want to be careful. I mean, you hit the nail on the head there, Felipe. There's no question of us trying to rush him back. I think, we are going to have, because, we're now looking towards 2021 when Joseph comes back, then he has had that, long platform and time-wise to get back. But you're right, you never can be 100% certain. But I think, someone with his mental focus and drive, we're really hopeful that, we will be able to give him that platform, the time to come back and to be, 100%, hopefully 110% when he comes back. I think the reality is, on a lot of these things, and we've spoken about it, it's almost impossible this season. What could we have done differently to sort of deal with the scenario where Joseph goes down? I mean, it's very hard in a salary cap, and I'll be honest with you here, because you don't go into a season planning that you're going to lose that star striker for a year. Also, that star striker that, remember, if he is fit, is going to play every game. So you'd be trying to recruit a player to come in, firstly, who understands that the reality is they're not going to play very often, if at all, if Joseph is fit. Secondly, as you remember, we lost Brandon, someone who would have been that sort of cover person in the expansion draft, and that's the nature of the MLS and the salary cap league we're in. And we lost a player in the expansion draft that ultimately that became a much more important position than we could have thought of. So going into next year, I mean, we certainly have to be thinking about that flexibility for a player like Joseph going down. We've got a young talent like Eric coming in. I think he's someone that will be able to play with us in 21. Is somebody that is young, and he's developing still, but he's a top exciting talent, and we're really hopeful about how he can develop in Atlanta United. And he's someone that is available to be an attacking presence that can play in certain games, can play that 9 if needed. So I think what we'll be looking to do is you always try to look for flexibility in a salary cap league, because you just can't cover every position. And I think that's something that obviously we'll be mindful of, Felipe, going into 21, that's an area as we're putting the squad together. We obviously all hope, pray, cross our fingers that Joseph's going to be coming back even better than ever, but we've got to be realistic and sensible enough that we have some contingency plans this year in 21 going forwards.
Doug, go ahead. Doug, your line's open if you can hear me. Let's go to Joe. Joe, go ahead.
Hey, Darren. Thanks for taking the time to do this afternoon. I wanted to ask about kind of the way that the culture of the club has shifted a little bit this year. It's been pretty striking, at least to me, because when we've talked to players, they've said straight up that it feels like a different team, especially the players that were around, not just last year, but the year in 2018. And, obviously that sentiment is understandable when you have a coaching change, the Joseph Martinez injury early in the year. It's totally understandable for that to feel like it's the case. But I guess the question is, and I'm just kind of curious what your thoughts are on how that turns back around. And obviously the manager is going to have a big part in that, but how much of I don't know if challenge is the right word to describe it, but just how much is that, I guess, on your mind as the team heads into next year?
Yeah, Joe, look, I mean, I think it's been great. And I think, look, again, it's the same for all teams. I don't want to underplay it, but this has been a crazy year as well, because we haven't been playing in front of our fans. So again, when you're talking about players that have been with the club when we were playing in 17, 18, 19 in front of our 50,000 plus average crowds, I mean, this year has been a weird year on so many levels. I mean, I still can't, I'll always remember playing that 9 o'clock in the morning game in Orlando when we had that match in you guys were watching on TV with projected stands. I mean, literally there's no stands there. It was like an under 10s game at a tournament where, and this was an MLS game. So I think, for so many reasons, this has been a crazy year. And I think, an advantage we've got is, we get to go into 21 with a new coach, with a chance to, hopefully be back in front of our amazing supporters. and almost treat it like it's like almost back to 2017 and relaunching. I mean, I think one factor that I would agree with, and we always try to listen and respond with our fans. That's something how we built the club, and even with the digital access and media, because of the protocols for COVID, in terms of the ability to do anything around storytelling with the players, we were really limited. We tried our best. We've done all sorts of things where we were trying to get our fans involved, from me talking before games when we were playing in Orlando. But again, it's been really difficult within the structures to have that sense of connection that we've had before with our fans. So that's something that is going to be vitally important going into 21, that, we understand that we've got to build those storylines again, build that connection. We've been limited by circumstances, but we're aware that that's something, and we have a great opportunity in 21 to do that. So I think for me, I'm excited that we have that chance to reboot, if you like, I spoke about resurgence. This is our chance to go again. I think, from the head coach, from the Joseph coming back, from the players that we'll be bringing in, some of the new players like a Marcelino, who's yet to know what it's like to come into 70,000 at the Mercedes-Benz Stadium and to feel that passion and that connection with our supporters. That's something that we're going to be really purposeful about as we go into 21. And, that's something for me that excites me because, we've spoken about, with the coaching changes, with, the way this season's gone on the pitch, but also everything around it off the pitch has made it so unusual that it is, it has been, frankly, nothing like our previous 3 seasons on so many levels. So that's something that, we'll be building for 21. And it's something that excites me because I know that we've got that opportunity to reconnect, to rebuild, to redevelop. And, it helps us to forget this awful year that's been 2020 and look to the future.
Last 2 questions, Mike Conti and then Joe Patrick. Mike, go ahead.
Darren, have you gotten any indication from the league on a potential start date for the 2021 season? And do you feel certain that the season will be played if closed-door matches are the only way in which matches can go off in 2021?
Yeah, Mike, at the moment, I mean, like everyone, we're still planning on it being, the season like we normally do. That starts around the March time. Obviously, I think they'll be looking at different contingencies. And again, it's very difficult. We've seen that this year. I mean, it feels like, there's that sense of deja vu every time, we have calls or we're having chats and updates because, you try and make a prediction, you feel like a fool 2 weeks later because everything changes. So, as things stand, I mean, we're just really hopeful that we can get to the other side of the COVID situation and get fans back in the building just like it used to be. But I think, at this stage, it's really hard to predict how it's going to be. And at the moment, the plan is still to have that season, have it how we've always had it. But I'm sure there'll be contingency plans built in, and we'll get a better idea of that as we get closer to to 2021. Now, look, we get it a little bit with the Champions League, and I know Carlos mentioned this. I mean, it is a bit of a crazy season that we now have to, have a break, and then we come back in a game on the 15th or 16th of December, and we're 3-0 down in it. I chuckled to myself yesterday looking through the rules. I think if Club America were to have a situation where, they couldn't travel because of COVID, we'd get a 3-0 victory under the rules. So I'm not sure what happens then. Do we have to do a penalty shootout against ourselves as a 3-3 on aggregate? And knowing the way this season's gone for us, we probably lose that. So I'm not sure what's going to happen.
Last question, Joe. Go ahead.
Oh man, this is a question from Doug. His computer froze, so we're all having technical issues today. Well, I guess he asked me 2, and Mike already asked 1. The other one he wanted to know is the status of Ezequiel Barco. Obviously, he's a big designated player. Is the plan on him being here in 2021?
Yeah, absolutely, Joe. I mean, I know there was a little bit around the injuries, and again, this is something where he was day to day, and it was one of those injuries where you're not sure if he's going to be able to play or not. And unfortunately, each time he got to the game, it was just not quite ready for him to play. I thought, again, he put a great work rate in yesterday in the match. He's got a multi-year contract with us, and he's still only a young player. And the frustration's been, I think, for for all of us, and Ezekiel more than anyone, you know, he's had these patches where he's really come into form. You know, you think back to last year when he was playing under 20 World Cup with Argentina and playing really well, and he came back and, you know, got kicked in Columbus in that game in the rain, and that set him back. I think at the start of this season, you know, those halcyon days before we had COVID, where, you know, the world was a normal place, and, you know, he was, you know, definitely our best player in those first couple of games. You know, that game at Nashville with the goal he scored, obviously he got the goal when we played against Cincinnati. So he was up and flying, and then, you know, we get hit by COVID, and, you know, he's just had some niggling issues since with injuries. So, you know, he's still only very young. He's a talented player. You know, he's someone that, you know, we're really hopeful that is going to, you know, get that run of consistency and raise his game. And I think, you know, we saw glimpses of that in the game yesterday of what an asset he can be. And, you know, we've got that chance for, you know, the off season for him to, you know, get up to 100%. And then, you know, it's part of that. So as we hit 21, you know, we need Ezekiel to step up as well and give us that season of consistency and of top performances, because, you know, he is now getting older, and it falls on his shoulders as a designated player to produce. And I have all the faith in the world that he'll do that.
All right, thanks, everyone. Thanks, Darren. And as I said, we'll have a recording out shortly here. It takes a few minutes to upload, but feel free to reach out to me for that. Thanks again.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it all.